Hello and welcome back to Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a beautiful, elegant, and delicious dessert. I'm going to show you how I make my cherry almond tart. It's going to be filled with an almond frangipane filling. The tart shell is going to be a homemade buttery crust that's going to be so flaky and delicious, and it's going to be topped and baked with fresh cherries. I mean, this is a dessert that dreams are made of. It's so good. We're going to go over the ingredients of the crust because we're going to make that first. And as a matter of fact, I already made that, so I'll show you how I made it. First, we're going to go over those ingredients. So for the tart dough, for the shell, we're going to need some ice cold water, pure almond extract, a little bit of salt, some unsalted butter, and you want to make sure the butter is really nice and cold, a little bit of granulated sugar, and some all-purpose flour. We're going to begin by adding the flour to the mixing bowl, along with a little bit of salt and some granulated sugar. Now I'm going to add all of the butter in. And with the flat beater attachment, I'm going to mix it until the butter starts to crumble and get coated into the flour. So this is what it should look like before we move on to adding the water and the almond extract. You want the butter to be crumbled in with the flour, just like that. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of pure almond extract and 4 tablespoons of ice cold water. And we're just going to mix this until a dough is formed. And that's it. Once the dough starts to come together, the mixture is ready. So I'm just going to lightly flour my work surface with some all-purpose flour. And I'm just going to put my ball of dough in the center, flour it a little bit more, and I'm just going to roll this out until it's a little bit bigger than my tart pan. Perfect, because you want it to go up the sides of the pan. That's what you're looking for. I'm just going to fold it in half, so that way it's easy to transfer into the pan. And I'm just going to press it in. Make sure not to stretch it. And then I'm just going to press the sides just to cut the excess off. And I'm just going to redistribute the excess dough right around the sides of the pan so the sides can be nice and thick and be able to hold the filling that we're going to put in here. And then I'm just going to pierce it with a fork. And I'm going to pop this in my freezer for at least an hour. You could do this a week ahead of time or even a month ahead of time. Just keep it in your freezer until it's nice and chilled. This crust is wonderful because you can make it way ahead of time. I like to keep this in my freezer, at least one of these, at all times. They keep fresh in the freezer, frozen up until a month. Just make sure that if you're going to keep it in there for more than a day or two, you keep it wrapped in plastic so that way it does not absorb the smells of the freezer. My oven is preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to place this on a baking pan because if I don't, it's going to be kind of hard to transfer in and out of the oven. And I'm going to let it bake in there for about 30 minutes in the center rack or until it's nice and golden, and I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. I do want to say that you want to make sure you do chill this very well, at least an hour if not overnight, because if you were to put it in the oven right after you shape it into your tart pan, it's going to start to melt and become misshapen, and then it's going to be hard to fill it if it kind of crumbles down into the tart tin. But I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it's done. So I'm going to remove the pits from these cherries with my cherry stoner. I'll put the link in the video box underneath below in the description box and in my Amazon shop. So this is very easy to do when you have one of these. It just pops out the seed. We're going to need about 25 cherries. So I'm using fresh cherries if they're hard to find. I know while I was testing this recipe, I got lots of messages on Instagram from people up in Canada who let me know that cherries are super duper expensive up there. You can definitely use frozen cherries for this. If you will be using frozen cherries, then make sure you thaw them out well and place them in a colander so that way all of the liquid can drain from them. You could save that liquid and put it in smoothies and stuff like that, but you don't want it to end up in this tart. So that's an option. If not, you can definitely use fruits that are in season like apricots or blueberries or something like that. Let's go over the remaining ingredients. We're going to need some finely ground almond flour, and I buy this already ground. It's blanched, but you can do it yourself if you'd like. We need some pure almond extract, some vanilla extract, some apricot jam, 2 eggs, some sliced almonds for a garnish, a little bit of salt, some unsalted butter. We're gonna need some lemon zest and some granulated sugar. Now we're gonna move on to making the filling. So in my mixing bowl, fill it with a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract and 2 teaspoons of pure almond extract to bring out that almond flavor. I'm gonna mix that until everything is all combined. I'm just gonna crack these 2 eggs into my bowl. I never like to crack eggs directly into the mixing bowl because first of all, you can get a bad egg, and secondly, you can get some shell in there and you don't want that. I will set that aside. And in my almond flour, I'm gonna add the zest of a lemon. You can also use this, or instead of a lemon, you could use the zest of an orange. Either one. The citrus is gonna cut the heaviness of the almond flavor and really balance it out and just make it nice and refreshing. And to that, I'm gonna add a little bit of salt. You always need salt in your desserts. Just a little bit balances out all of the flavors, and I'm gonna mix all of the dry ingredients up. So while the mixer is running on medium, I'm gonna add 1 egg at a time. Oops, or maybe 2 eggs at a time. And I'm gonna go ahead and scrape down the sides of the bowl. Let that beat at high speed until everything is combined. And while the mixer is running on low speed, I'm gonna add the almond flour and let it mix just until everything is incorporated. And it's almost ready, except I like to go in with a spatula and release anything that's stuck to the sides or the bottom. And the filling, just like that, is ready. The tart took 30 minutes to bake, the tart crust, I should say. All I'm gonna do is with a fork, press it to kind of help the border stick to the edges of the pan. This skips the whole step of blind baking with pie weights or beans. Now keep an eye on it while it's baking. If it starts to form a bubble and the bottom of the crust starts to rise, go in with your fork and pierce it so that way the steam escapes. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna add about a tablespoon of granulated sugar onto our cherries, and we're just gonna mix them all up just so that way they get lightly coated. Then we're gonna take the jam and spread it across the bottom of the pie tart. Now we're gonna fill the center with this luscious almond cream. And then I'm just gonna set the cherries on top. I like to set them on their sides so that way the hole that's in the center doesn't show. Press them into the filling. The oven is still set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. The tart is gonna bake at the center, on the center rack of the oven for about 40 minutes or until it's beautifully golden all around, and I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. My tart took 45 minutes to bake. It's gonna take anywhere between 40 and 45 minutes, but what you're gonna be looking for is for it to become golden brown on top. Once it's done, take it out of the oven and put it onto a cooling rack so that way it can cool completely. Then go ahead and brush it with some apricot jam that you've melted either in the microwave or on a stovetop. Brush it all around the edges of the tart. Then sprinkle some sliced almonds all around. Once it cools, transfer it onto a serving dish or a cake platter, and then serve it either with a scoop of ice cream or some whipped cream. I'm serving mine with some mastica ice cream, and you're gonna wanna go ahead up to the card section and grab that recipe because it is delicious. But you can go ahead and serve it with whatever you like. If you're not serving with ice cream, you can go ahead and dust some confectioner sugar on top. It is time to take a bite. Oh my God. The crust is flaky and buttery and crisp. The filling is so creamy and just the right amount of almond, just the right amount of sweetness. The cherries are perfectly cooked and nice and sweet. I think you're gonna love this combination. Make it, serve it with some tea or at the end of a dinner party. This is definitely a showstopper dessert. Go over to the website www.dimitrasdishes.com to print the recipe. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below and what you'd like to learn how to make next. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Gracias.